One time when I was about 14 years old, I was babysitting for a police officer and his wife. The police officer was on duty that night, and I can't really remember where the wife was going, but nonetheless, they hired me to babysit. I had never been to their house before, and I remember when I got there, how creepy this house had seemed. It was an old house down in Walled Lake, Michigan, and I can remember the house did not have modern heat ducts. Instead, there were registers in the floor in the upstairs that you could peer through clear to the downstairs living area. I don't remember too much about the incident, other than hearing some footsteps upstairs and other noises after I put the couple's children to bed. I could hear the noises very well through the heat registers, and I remember it looked as though somebody had walked right over one of them above me. I remember going upstairs to check to see what they were up to, only to find them sound asleep. I also remember trying to wake them, and it was obvious that they were fast asleep. And besides, they were very small children, like 3 and 4 years old, certainly not old enough to pull off any kind of prank very well. And so I went back downstairs, a little concerned, since the house was dark and creepy to begin with, and I had heard these strange, unexplained noises. But after going back downstairs and the noises started again, I immediately called dispatch, got the police officer on the phone, and demanded that he come home and take me home immediately, as I would not stay any longer. I never babysat for them again, and I do remember the police officer trying to convince me all the way home that it was just my imagination because the house was old, etc. In either case, I never went back again and told the police officer very nicely to find another babysitter. Another incident happened when I was in high school, shortly before graduation. I used to babysit my little sister after school for a couple hours before my stepmother got home. One afternoon, I was babysitting her and watching TV. She was very young at the time, about 4 years old. This was the time of day that she usually took a nap, and she fell asleep on the couch next to me, like usual. While watching TV that afternoon, and I wasn't watching anything scary, I think I may have been watching either Oprah or a soap opera, I distinctly heard the sliding glass door in the finished basement open and close. You know the sound of sliding glass doors? The sound is very distinct. I didn't think anything of it. My father and stepmother usually came and went through that door, since the finished basement is actually on the ground level, and the living quarters of this beautiful log home is actually on the second floor. This was a common and most used entrance into the house. My father worked out of town during the week and was only home on the weekends. Anyway, like I said, I didn't think anything of it. I thought my stepmother was home and expected her to come walking up the stairs at any moment, like she usually did when she came home. I also remember thinking, boy, she's home early today. I just kept watching television. After about 10 minutes, I noticed that she had not come up the stairs, so I went to the stairs and called down to her, but got no response. I thought to myself, that's weird. I know I heard the door. Then I heard what sounded like somebody downstairs, so I called again, and nothing. So I peered out the kitchen window and looked down into the driveway, and her car was not there. I got scared at that point. I thought to myself, oh no, not again, remembering other incidents while babysitting. And I ran to the telephone to try to call her at work. The phone was dead. I absolutely freaked out at this point. I grabbed my little sister, who was still fast asleep, threw her little winter coat on. It was the middle of winter time. Grabbed the biggest butcher knife I could find, and ran out the front door. I ran down the deck steps and into my dad's old pickup truck in the driveway. I locked the doors and just sat there in total terror. I didn't know what to do. There was no doubt in my mind that somebody was in the house, and I stared at the house for what seemed like forever, until my stepmother got home. Of course, she couldn't understand why I was so hysterical, and what on earth I was doing outside in the pickup truck in the middle of the dead winter, with a butcher knife of all things. Anyway, she checked the sliding glass door to the basement. It was locked. There seemed to be nobody in the house, and if it were a real person in the house, there was no way they could have escaped unseen by me as I sat in the old pickup truck. I remember how scared I was. The house is in the woods, and back then, there wasn't another house closer than about 80 acres away. By the way, the first thing my stepmother did when she got home and investigated my claim was to check the telephone, which was working fine. Oh well. I know she thought I absolutely lost my rocker that afternoon, but I know better. She still laughs and teases me about it whenever it is brought up now. My little sister, who is now 20 years old, doesn't remember a thing. At the same home, during the same time in my life, shortly before high school graduation, I experienced the strangest things each night in my bedroom. After everybody went to sleep, these strange things occurred for at least several weeks. I would fall asleep, but awaken around 1 to 2 a.m. in the morning because my bed would be shaking. Now, I just want to clarify that this log home is not old or anything. It was only about 10 years old at the time, and was very, very beautiful. I had a beautiful bedroom with pretty pink carpeting. There was nothing really creepy or scary about this house, nor the woods that it was situated in. However, every night like clockwork, for several weeks, I would awaken to feel my bed shaking uncontrollably, and I would throw the covers over my head and just shake in total fear. Then it would stop. I would fall back asleep, and by morning, I would think it was just a dream. Except, after a while, I started realizing that it was no dream. It was really happening. And I can remember one night yelling, "Stop it, go away." And that was the end of it. It never happened again. And after what happened in the earlier story I just told, I never spoke to my parents about it. The only person in the world that I told was my boyfriend, who also happens to be my husband of 14 years. He is convinced that I am sensitive to spiritual things. As I said in my last letter, because of the experiences I've had in my life, like those said about above, and the actual ghost I saw, that I spoke about in my earlier email, I'm so very much interested in ghost hunting. My husband would have no part of it, so when it comes to this stuff, I'm on my own, but I just don't know where to start. I guess there is a part of me that wants to do this, so that I don't feel like I'm crazy. Also because of the so many unanswered biblical questions that I have, that I somehow feel like if I do this, I might feel more resolved in my beliefs. On the other hand, it could prove to be even more confusing. Who knows? If you have any suggestions about how to go about doing this secretly, I can't let anyone in the community I live know what I'm up to. I'm a business owner and a local politician, and I don't need people thinking I'm nuts. I would appreciate any advice you would give me. Thanks so much. "11 years ago, I moved into an old little walkout rambler that sits on my father-in-law's business property in the country. We call it Ghetto in the Meadow. Don't get me wrong, it's okay, but tiny, and at that time, needed some repairs that have since been done. It had at one time been moved to the country by the man that had lived there for many years in the house, until he died in the hospital. His name was Myron. I had to move my king-size waterbed in the unfinished basement, because that's the only place that was big enough for the bed. My boyfriend refused to sleep downstairs, because when we were downstairs, we could hear footsteps above us, going back and forth. One night, we fell asleep on the floor, watching TV on the main floor. Sometime in the night, my boyfriend moved to the couch and left me on the floor. It was about 5 a.m. that I woke up stiff. We were talking and heard a noise like someone walking upstairs. Then we heard a blurp noise in the bathroom. I jokingly told my boyfriend that it was Myron and he had to go to the bathroom. Just after I said it, the water in the bathroom sink came on. He wanted me to stay in the living room and he would check it out. No way. I was right behind him and watched as he had turned the handle to shut the water off. After that, we had many things happen. Lights in the TV would turn on and off. A broom in the basement would get knocked over, and I smelled pipe smoke in the living room once, and perfume in the kitchen several times. Our beagle would stare up at the ceiling, as if watching something by where you get up to the attic. Many times, my boyfriend would get his gun and go looking around the house because we would hear strange things. He got a double waterbed that would fit in one of the 2 small bedrooms. After that, we'd hear a lot of noise in the basement by a workbench. We lived in the house for 5 years. My mom couldn't believe that we would stay there, but it was pretty much harmless stuff, and it wasn't like it was happening every night. Just when we started to feel like maybe we imagined what happened, something else would go on. Before we moved, I tried to get my husband to come to bed. Instead of sleeping on the couch, I got his usual reply within a minute, which meant he wouldn't be moving. I went into the bedroom, and it felt really cold, so much so that I went and checked the thermostat in case it got turned down. I had just gotten comfortable and heard my husband yell out my name. He said he heard little feet scurrying from the kitchen to the living room really fast and go behind the couch. The couch was only inches away from the wall, and something slapped him on the back of the head. He didn't go back to sleep that whole night. Maybe something was telling him that he should be in bed with me. I found it funny, but he didn't find the humor in it. We had a baby and moved into our new house. I heard balls inside one of her blow-up toys move and went to check on it so I wouldn't wake her up. I thought the toy was by the register and the air conditioning was on, but it wasn't even close by. Twice it happened. One afternoon, I laid down for a nap and remember seeing a very good-looking man come to my bedroom door and talk to me. At first, I was afraid, but when I saw his face, I definitely wasn't. I couldn't remember what he talked to me about, but asked if he could see our baby before he left. He turned around and looked in the other bedroom for a minute, and turned back around and said my name, and told me how beautiful she was, and that she'd be waking up. In that instant, she was crying. He was gone, and I was awake. Do you think it was a dream? Or who was it? Myron, from Ghetto in the Meadow, or my husband's brother that died? After that, nothing unusual happened at our house. My brother-in-law moved to Ghetto in the Meadow, and said at first, the lights would go on, and heard noises, but nothing happened there in years. This is my experience with a haunted house. Me and my family moved into this big house about 15 years ago. I had 2 small daughters and my husband at the time. The first night there, I was alone and had just put my kids to sleep upstairs and was just laying down myself when I heard someone in the kitchen. It sounded like they were going through the drawers frantically, looking for something. Well, I was terrified, as I knew that my husband wasn't there. I went downstairs to see what or who was there, and nothing was out of place. That's when other things started to occur. My youngest daughter wouldn't go upstairs by herself. She always told me that there was a man up there. I didn't understand it till later. As we settled in, things got worse for me. I would be watching TV. The volume would go up and down. Ashtrays on the table would move. The drapes would sway when the windows weren't open. I was bathing one time in the downstairs bathroom and felt something touch my shoulder. It felt very cold. I had things of mine stolen, and I'd never gotten it back. One night, I was just dozing off, and I felt the covers being pulled off of me. This really scared me, but I tried not to think about it the next day. I was cleaning the stairs, and a very deep voice said, "Hey you," right beside me. The hair stood up on my neck. That night, at 2 a.m., someone came running up the stairs, stopping at the top. Of course, I saw nothing there. My husband told me that he awoke one night, and there was a very tall man standing in the corner of our room, dressed in black, just watching us. The next day, my oldest daughter told me that a woman who was dressed like a nurse carrying a tray came out of her closet, walking towards her. She had a name tag, but it wasn't legible. It scared her pretty bad. One morning, I was down in the basement doing laundry, and I hated to go down there. When I got this terrible feeling, I tried to ignore it, but it got worse. The hairs on my neck were tingling. I knew that something was coming up behind me, but I couldn't move. Then it was like someone stomped on the cement floor. It was so weird, because the floor vibrated. I was so scared that I threw my laundry and ran up the stairs. I would also go to bed with jewelry on, and wake up, and it would be off, and I would find it somewhere in the house. One morning, I woke up to find a straight razor in my bed down by my feet. I think that did it for me, and I wanted to move out. And the kids' bedroom window would never stay shut. We tried everything to keep it shut, but I would go upstairs, and it would be opened. My mother babysat for me one evening, and when I got home, she was white as a ghost, and told me that she would never watch my kids here again. We also had a dog that we kept tied in the corner of the yard, right by the area of the basement that scared me the most, and I saw him digging, and didn't think anything of it until I returned, and saw that he dug a hole waist deep, and was still trying to dig. His paws were bleeding, and he was foaming at the mouth. I had to pull him out of there. It was horrible. He finally moved out, and for a long time, my daughter was afraid that the man was going to follow us. I looked up the history of the house, and found out that it was built in the 1800s. That was all that I could find out. The house is still there. I drive by it sometimes, and wonder if the people who live there now have any problems. There's a lot of ghosts in my family, so I'll just tell you a few. My grandfather passed away before I was born. He used to wait for my aunt, sitting in his rocking chair, every day to get out of school. Well, one day after he died, my aunt said that she came home from school to find her babysitter with her jaw hanging open and wide-eyed, staring at the rocker. It was rocking by itself, and their dog was sitting in front of it, begging. Suddenly, the rocker stopped moving, and the dog started walking slowly back to the door, which was deadbolt locked. The door unlocked in front of everyone and swung open. So did the screen door. Normally, if the back door was open, the dog would run out. He didn't. Then both doors shut again, but they didn't lock. Another story is told by my mother and my aunts on my father's side. They were all playing Trivial Pursuit when a question came up about one of the wars that my grandfather had fought in. Meanwhile, there was a pot of spaghetti sitting on the stove. My Aunt Patty said a smart comment about my grandfather and the war, just joking around. Well, the pot of spaghetti flew across the room and landed right next to my Aunt Patty's feet. It dumped everywhere and just missed her. I think he was just trying to tell her that her joke wasn't funny. My personal experiences are different. One, for instance, was when my grandfather died in 1990. 2 weeks later, me and my cousin slept in my grandmother's house. My aunts and fathers lived there. Well, about 8 p.m., we both went into the living room to watch TV, and my grandma's rocker was rocking by itself. That I saw with my own 2 eyes. Another incident was at my cousin Sandy's house. My cousin Brandy and I were babysitting. She was on the phone with her boyfriend when the kitchen light switch started turning on and off by itself. It was going up and down, like someone was turning it on and off. Okay, last story. The story to my cousin Sandy's house is even weirder. A man had hung himself in the attic a couple of years before she moved in. My cousin was a dancer, so she used to exercise a lot to stay in shape. Anyways, she told me a few stories about when she was exercising, and she would get tapped on the shoulder. Or once she heard someone calling out her newborn son's name, and no one was in the house. She heard knocks on the front door. The attic door would open and shut continuously. Her brother-in-law was there on a few instances. Whoever he wasn't good. He was definitely there to scare, so she moved out within 6 months. I have a few more that I can think of, but I think this is already too long. I don't know if there's a reason for so many hauntings in my family or not, but I wish that it would stop. You never know what would happen if someone really ever got one of these spirits angry. Thanks for reading my family history. I hope you enjoyed it. I didn't. Next time on What Would You Do? A man is standing at his computer, frustrated because he can't edit his videos. Another man is in his presence. Do you help the man, or do you simply wait out his frustration and hope that he figures things out? The man decides to approach the struggling man, and he asks him what's up, and the man responds, "I don't know, I'm working on a video, and I can't get it out on time." The other man says, "I can just make your videos for you, it'd be so easier." And the other man responds, "No, I can't do that, I need my voice, you can't put your voice on this, what the hell are you talking about?" And then, the other man, he says, "I was trying to help you, but since you want to be a bitch about it, then I guess I'll just leave now." Wait, the computer guy says, "You can comment, like, share, and subscribe. That's how you help me." And the other guy just says to him, "Really? It's that simple?" And the computer guy says, "Yes, it is. It really is. Just please help me out." And then, the unthinkable happens. A guy recording this whole situation comes in and tells him that his name is John and that he wanted to film people's reactions to how a struggling man on the computer would be in a situation and if anybody would help him at all. So the other man is so relieved. "Oh my gosh," he says, "I can't believe it. I can't believe that this was secretly filmed. But I really need to comment, like, and subscribe to that guy's video he was working on regardless." Okay guys, I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. That was just a scenario I played inside my head, and I guess recorded for you guys for the outro because I've been so addicted to those what would you do scenario type videos by that John guy who, he pops out and says, "Oh, this is a scenario, oh, it's not real." It's like they put him into situations where, like, you have to be a good Samaritan and see if people will speak up and, like, protect other people and stuff like that. So it's actually a really addicting show. So if you want to go watch it, go ahead. They're not sponsoring me to make this video or say anything about this or, whatever. But you know what? I just wanted to say that. Anyway, guys, I'm going to cut this short because I wasted so much time creating a false scenario that was really stupid in the outro. So, guys, comment, like, and share, and subscribe. I love you guys. I didn't even mean to say that. I meant to say just love you guys, and I'll be out. But good night, guys. Love you guys. Good morning, and I'll see you in the next video.